The parable of the prodigal son is one of Jesus' most powerful teachings about grace, repentance, and forgiveness. It's a story that speaks to every heart, especially when we consider not just the journey of the younger son, but the silent struggle of the older son. Today, we focus on his perspective, a perspective we may find ourselves identifying with more than we realize. The younger son had taken his inheritance, left home, and squandered it all in reckless living. When he hit rock bottom, he realized his mistake and decided to return to his father, hoping to be accepted not as a son, but as a servant. His father, seeing him from a distance, ran to him, embraced him, and called for a grand celebration. He said, "For this son of mine was as good as dead and has begun to live again. He was lost and has been found." The father's love overflowed, and the celebration began, but not everyone was happy. There was another son, his older son, who had stayed behind, working in the fields. When he heard the music and dancing, something inside him shifted. He wasn't filled with joy, he was filled with resentment. The older son, coming from the fields, stopped at the door of the house and, confused by the sounds of celebration, asked one of the servants what was going on. And he called one of the servants and began asking what this celebration meant. The servant told him that his younger brother had returned, and that his father had ordered a feast in honor of his safe return. But instead of rejoicing for his brother's redemption, the older son became angry and refused to enter the house. His pride, his sense of justice, and his jealousy overwhelmed him. He stood outside, seething. But he became angry, deeply resentful, and was not willing to go in. And his father came out and began pleading with him. The father, who had just embraced his lost son, left the celebration to go outside and plead with the older son. This was no small gesture. In that culture, a father did not go out to beg or plead with his child. It was the other way around. But the father's love was limitless. He sought out the older son whose heart was hardened and whose resentment had grown too large to ignore it. The older son's bitterness overflowed in his words. He confronted his father, accusing him of favoritism. He said, "I have been loyal. I have worked hard, and you've never given me a celebration. Yet this son of yours, who wasted everything on sin, gets a feast." The older son felt unseen and unappreciated, trapped in his own sense of duty, and blinded by his sense of fairness. But he answered and said to his father, "Look, these many years I have served you, and I have never neglected your command. And yet you never gave me so much as a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours arrived, who has devoured your wealth with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him." The older son's words were laced with self-righteousness. He focused solely on what he had done, what he had earned, and the lack of recognition he felt he deserved. He couldn't understand why the father would lavish such grace on the one who had squandered everything. In his eyes, his faithfulness was meant to earn something more, and it did not. But the father responded with kindness and patience. He didn't shame his son or rebuke him harshly. Instead, he spoke truth gently, reminding the older son of what he already had. Everything the father owned was his. He had always been with the father, and nothing was being taken from him. And the father said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours." But we had to celebrate and rejoice, for this brother of yours was as good as dead and has begun to live again. He was lost and has been found. The father's response is a profound reminder that the older son, in all his faithfulness, had never been without. He had always had the father's presence, the father's love, and everything that was the father's was his by right. But what was truly needed in this moment was a celebration, not just for the return of the lost son, but for the grace and mercy that brought him back. The father was asking the older son to share in that joy, to see beyond his own sense of justice, and to join the celebration of a restored relationship. In this moment, the older son was invited into the very heart of the father's love. The father wasn't dismissing the older son's feelings, but he was asking him to go beyond his self-centered view of fairness and to embrace the grace that had been extended to his brother. The older son was being given the opportunity to experience the same forgiveness and joy, not just for the return of his brother, but for his own heart to be healed and reconciled.
Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours.
The story doesn't tell us how the older son responded, but it leaves us with a question. Will we, like the older son, allow jealousy, pride, and comparison to steal the joy of grace? Or will we recognize that, like the Father's love for both sons, we are all recipients of grace and mercy, and that it is not about what we earn, but about what has been freely given to us? The older son's struggle is one that many of us can relate to, feeling overlooked, feeling like our efforts go unnoticed, or feeling that grace is reserved for those who have fallen the furthest. But the Father's love is for all, regardless of our deeds. His heart is one of celebration for the lost being found, for the dead being made alive, and for grace being extended to all who are willing to receive it. Just as the Father waited for the older son to join the celebration, God waits for us to join this celebration. God waits for us to join His joy, to understand that His love is not about merit, but about the beauty of redemption and restoration. May we all learn to share in that joy.